Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hey there, guys. This is Rita.
This is Amanda, listening to I Don't Know Her, the podcast where we talk about women you've probably never heard of, but you should have.
And you will.
So we have a really special event happening right now. This is actually our first live podcast.
Super excited, a little terrified. We'll see how it goes.
So we're recording this little intro because the time limit that we have for the live podcast is real tight. So we know we're not going to be able to give very much of an intro or have any banter. So we just wanted to make sure we had something to lead in our episode today and kind of give you the rundown of what this live show is all about today.
Yeah, we're going to be participating in what's called GirlCon Northwest. And it is sponsored by the Girl Scouts of America. And what they're doing is they're hosting, I guess you would say sessions.
It's a whole conference for girls in grades 6 through 12. So what we're going to do today is they're going to have their sessions and stuff during the day. And then we're going to do a live podcast on the main stage with these girls. And we're each going to talk about a girl who did something incredible in the world, changed the world in some way, or did something phenomenal. And that way, these young women can have some inspiration for the fact that even as a young person, you can make a difference.
You can still make a difference. Yeah, absolutely. And I like that too for us because it's really, really fun discovering all these women, but it's really cool to also see young girls that have made a difference. Because for me, my mind kind of didn't go there, thinking about that.
Yeah, I definitely would always think about what I could do as a woman. Like when I get older, when I'm an adult, I can do a thing. So it's really cool to see young people be able to do things. And we've talked about it on the podcast before. We're so impressed with the generation that's coming up right now and all of the things they're already doing to put themselves out there, to make a difference. I don't think I told you this. I went to a conference myself this week.
That's right. We haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah. So I went to this conference called Confronting Hate in Our Schools. And it's all about trying to suss out white supremacy and recruitment that's happening in our schools in this area. We have a long history in the Pacific Northwest in general, and specifically in the Spokane Coeur d'Alene region of having white supremacist organizations. And currently there's a very active white supremacist organization that is recruiting young people in our area. And I went to try to get a handle on how it is you recognize that and how can you make a difference and stop it from happening. And while I was there in the afternoon, there was a panel, and one of the people on the panel was a young woman who had organized the walkout during last year after the Parkland shooting.
Oh, cool.
So she had organized a walkout at her high school, and she spoke about how, she just thought she was organizing this one thing and that would be like the end of it. And because of the amount of backlash she received with threats and intimidation and harassment and things like that it kind of catapulted her to becoming an activist on a larger stage. So she's frequently going and doing things like what she did on Thursday, going and speaking to groups of people. She's being asked to be interviewed, which one is really cool.
Yeah.
And exciting for her. And two, I was so impressed with just how poised she was, how eloquent she was. She just had her shit together. And I was like, I could not have done that when I was 17.
Yeah. Way to find your calling early.
And she, at the beginning, they announced that she had just recently been accepted, I think, on a full ride scholarship to Chapman University, which is a private school that I wanted to go to. So I just think, we've got women who are young women, young girls who are doing things already that are incredible and impressive and amazing. And it's so exciting to be a part of this event.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I always felt that if I had maybe a little bit more encouragement when I was a young girl, maybe I wouldn't have as many of the walls that I put up as an adult. And that's my goal. It's like going there and just hopefully maybe sparking an interest in somebody and just like, hey, we're doing this thing. It's fun. It's informative. You can do anything. Honestly, you just have to take a chance. Like we took a chance with this podcast and we were like, we might fall flat on our faces, but hey, we're having fun while we're doing it. And it's actually going good.
And we work really hard.
We do.
And I think that's something that people don't often think about. Like, if you want to be successful, you got to put your nose to the grind. You got to fucking work your ass off. And if you're a woman, a person of color, if you're a queer person of color,
Twice as hard.
Trans person of color, you have to work even harder than your white counterparts. And that sucks. And it's fucked up, but it's reality. And now that you know it, just go. Do your thing.
Do your thing.
So I hope you enjoy the podcast today. It is live, and we'll be talking about a couple of really sweet ladies.
Yes, we will.
Young ladies.
Young ladies.
We're in a live podcast over here, which means that if you want to be heard and you can like tell your friends, come on over here because you're going to be recorded
Come on over
live.
here if you want to be on our podcast.
And we record, it'll be released on iTunes.
So my name is Rita.
My name's Amanda, and we are
I Don't Know Her.
The podcast where we talk about women you've probably never heard of, but you should have.
And you will.
And normally we talk about women, adult women who've accomplished really amazing things in their lives. But today we're going to change it up and we're going to talk about girls, young women.
Young ladies like yourselves. Can you guys make some noise? Why don't you be on our podcast? There you go.
So the more noise you make, obviously the more you're going to be heard on the podcast. So we would really love it for you guys to make some noise. So if you hear something, if something happens to the girl we're talking about that's terrible and you disagree with it, I want you to boo. Try it.
Or if something really good happens, what happens when something good happens? Yeah, awesome.
So both of our girls that we're talking about today did really amazing things as young women. And we want this to be an inspiration to you guys to do something great as young women.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go first. So one thing that we do on our podcast is I bring a woman, she brings a woman, but we don't know who we're bringing to the table. So I'll usually say the name, and then she'll go,
I don't know her.
So I'm going to say her name. So right now, if you know this girl or if you don't know her, you have to say, I don't know her. So her name is Barbara Johns.
I don't know her.
Okay, neither did I. so Barbara Johns, in 1951, she led her fellow students in a walkout to protest school segregation. She then helped start a lawsuit that became part of Brown versus Board, which contributed to desegregation for schools.
Woo!
That's a good thing, I know. So Barbara was born in New York City in 1935. She grew up in Prince Edwards County, Virginia, and the schools were completely segregated. African Americans had one school and whites had another. Right? Sucks. So the conditions of the African American schools were just terrible. Like the roofs leaked, the facilities didn't work, it was cold when it was really cold, it was hot when it was really hot. These were pretty terrible conditions. Barbara attended, it was called Robert Russa Moton High School, and it suffered overcrowding. So this is a school that's supposed to house 150 students. It had over 400 students there. Boo. So the school board tried to fix the problem by building tar paper shacks outside. So could you imagine having to go to school in a tar paper shack in the wintertime?
Or in the summer. I mean, we're talking about, where are we at, Virginia?
Virginia.
It gets so hot and humid there. You're in a tar paper shack. That's
Boo.
gross.
So Barbara ended up taking a stand, and she rallied some of her fellow classmates. It's actually pretty funny how Barbara was able to get her classmates rallied together. She reported to her principal that some students down the street were causing a problem, so the principal left the building. And then she rallied her fellow classmates together and was like, hey guys, this is a problem. I think we should do something about this. And she got other girls and boys on board with her, and they led a walkout of their school. Yeah. And Barbara was only 16 when she did this. That's pretty young.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and have a quote of what Barbara said. She said, the plan I felt was divinely inspired because I hadn't been able to think of anything until then. The plan was to assemble together the student council members. From this, we would formulate plans and go on strike. We would make signs and I would give a speech stating our dissatisfaction, and we would march out. And people would hear us, and they would see us, and they would understand our difficulty, and would sympathize with our plight, and would grant us our new school.
and our teachers would be proud, and the students would learn more, and it would be grand. So what a wonderful idea. And for a young person, too, she had a voice. And the more that you gather people together, of course, the better for your...
That's
better
really
for
cool.
your school, yeah.
I love that.
So following her lead, the students did the walkout. She contacted two lawyers, Oliver W. Hill and Spotswood Robinson. They were part of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, otherwise known as the NAACP. They took the case, which was aimed at ending the racial segregation. It was part of a case called Dorothy E. Davis versus the County School Board of Prince Edward County. She didn't win her lawsuit the first go-around. They actually lost.
Oh.
But they continued the lawsuit. They did not give up, so the lawyers sued again, a second time.
Good.
Which is a good thing, and when it's good, we go. All right, so in 1954, the second lawsuit, called David v. Prince Edward, became part of the Brown versus Board of Education, in which the United States Supreme Court declared that segregation was unconstitutional.
Yes! That's right.
So despite the Supreme Court ruling, of course, Virginia fought against it, but the people and the county and the students and the families kept pushing and pushing, which, of course, is where we are today, why we are not desegregated anymore. And it's really awesome that a young person and young people were able to contribute to something that we get to experience nowadays, which is like a nice, comfortable place to be able to go to school.
Where everybody is treated the same.
Where everyone's treated the same.
Or at least has the same access to the same things.
And
maybe
the
not
right.
treated the same.
Yes. All right. So Barbara actually committed herself to education. She went to college at Spelman College and Drexel University, and she became a school librarian. She got married. She had 5 children.
You guys, I'm a school librarian.
She's a librarian.
I've ever heard.
All right. And she was honored in her home state in 2008, Virginia State. They unveiled a monument to Barbara Johns in Richmond's Capitol Square to commemorate her role to desegregation.
Yes!
All right. So, Amanda, who do we have?
I love that story. I have a totally different kind of girl to tell you about. First off, I have to gauge the room. Who knows who Babe Ruth is? Yeah, Babe Ruth? You've heard of Babe Ruth? How about Lou Gehrig? Anybody heard of Lou Gehrig before?
I've heard of Lou Gehrig.
Okay, so these were 2 of the most famous baseball players in the world. Now, do you know who Jackie Mitchell is?
I don't know her.
I didn't know her either, but Jackie Mitchell actually struck out she was a pitcher. She struck out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. Right? So she was born Vernie Beatrice Mitchell in Chattanooga, Tennessee on August 29th, 1913. This is quite a while
early
ago.
1900s. That's pretty...
And as soon as she was able to walk, her dad was like, "You're going to learn how to play baseball." So he used to take her over to the park, and he would literally, she's a little toddler, barely being able to walk, and he's teaching her how to pitch, how to hit, and so she's learning how to play baseball before she's like able to chew her food properly. So she actually had the fortune of living next door to a guy that I'd never heard of because I'm not a big baseball person. His name is Dazzy Vance.
I don't know him.
Yeah, I didn't know him either. But he was a major league pitcher, and he would go on to become a baseball Hall of Famer. And he taught her how to pitch.
Oh, wow.
So you know she's going to be good at pitching, right? So she actually starts to learn a style of pitching that he creates called a drop ball, but we know it now as a sinker. Does anybody here play softball or baseball?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so a sinker is like those ones that like dip down low and they're really hard to hit. And that's what she learns how to pitch. So she's actually on an all-girls baseball team. Not a softball team. She's on an all-girls baseball team in Chattanooga called the Engelettes. And they're named after this guy who runs the minor league team in Chattanooga. And one day he comes and he sees the girls playing baseball and he's like, "Who is that? She is incredible. I want to sign her to a professional baseball team."
Oh, my goodness. How old is she at this time?
She is 17.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. So she was actually left-handed, and that's going to be coming up later. So make sure you put a pin in that. You need to know that she's left-handed. So he decides, I want her to be on our team called the Chattanooga Lookouts. This time it is the Depression in America. And if you don't know anything about the Depression, it means that nobody had any money And so they definitely were not going to go out to see a baseball game, right? They're not like, hey, you know what? I can barely afford bread. I'm going to go watch baseball. So they decided, this guy was like, I got to do stuff to make people come to our games. So he would do all kinds of crazy stunts, and he would try to get people to come into the stands. And so he decided, what better stunt than to have a girl play baseball?
Huh. I think that deserves a boo and a little bit.
I feel like that's a boo. So he thinks that it's going to be a big joke to have this girl play baseball, right? He does not think she's going to do very well. He's wrong.
She's like, hold up.
So at this point in time, what would happen often is major league teams would go to spring training, and then on the way back home, they would play what was called an exhibition game. And they would often play minor league teams. So this guy, Joe Engel, was like, what would be better than to have these New York Yankees play this team with a female pitcher, a 17-year-old girl?
Wow.
So the New York Yankees stop in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and on April 2nd, 1931, they play against the Chattanooga Lookouts. So now I've set the scene for you, right? It's the day of the game. You ready?
I'm ready.
So on the roster of the Yankees is none other than Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, some of the most talented and legendary baseball players of all time. Both of them were so well known for their hitting game that they were actually nicknamed Murderers Row.
Yep.
Because they would kill any team that came up against them. So you can imagine that would be a little bit intimidating. And the newspapers and publicity and stuff was really all about Jackie being a girl. And even though she was kind of a tomboy, she had been playing sports her whole life. She played tennis, baseball. She was a boxer. Like, she did heavy-duty sports.
That's really cool, yeah.
And she had short hair, and she was wearing a men's baseball uniform, and they still wanted to play up that she was a girl. So the newspapers even had her sit down and take photos where she's looking in a mirror and powdering her nose before a baseball game. Are you kidding me? Boo.
Boo.
So the game starts, and the manager puts in the starting pitcher, and his name was Clyde Barfoot, and I just want to make fun of his name for a second. His name is Clyde Barfoot. Okay. So after he starts pitching, and the first two batters walk. So he's a bad pitcher. So the manager pulls him out and puts in Jackie Mitchell. So she doesn't get some no-name Yankee that's on the third string. No, the first batter up to bat when she goes to pitch is none other than Babe Ruth.
Wow.
So she winds up the ball for her first pitch. She sends out her signature drop ball. Babe Ruth let it pass, and it was called a ball. So she's already got her strike against her, right? And everybody in the crowd is booing her, and they're like, you don't know how to play, you're a girl.
Boo.
So Jackie's second pitch, however, is spot on. And Ruth swings and misses. And then he misses the next pitch.
Ooh.
And then he's like, there's something wrong with the ball.
Oh, my God.
So he makes the umpire inspect the ball. He's convinced that there's no way the 17-year-old girl threw two pitches that he missed. There's got to be something funny with the ball. They're setting him up. They're making him look bad. So,
right? Boo.
So they inspect the ball, and the umpire's like, dude, the ball's fine. You're fine. You're just losing.
Calm down.
You're just losing to a girl. So deal with it. So she throws out her third pitch, and the ball catches right outside his corner, and he misses. So now it's
three strikes. You're out. She struck him out?
She struck him out, and the umpire says, you're out, and he has a temper tantrum. He throws the the bat on the ground. He throws his hat in the air, and he's screaming, and the umpire is like having to throw him out of the game, and the crowd is booing, and it's a mess, right? So everybody's excited because the next batter up is Lou Gehrig, and he was the second most important baseball player on the Yankees team.
Yep.
So Lou Gehrig comes up, and he was tied for Babe Ruth for the league lead in home runs. So he was a sure hitter, right? And she throws three pitches in a row. He misses all three pitches. He strikes out immediately. And the entire crowd, there are 4,000 people in the crowd, and they give her a standing ovation that lasts for 4 minutes.
Oh my goodness. That's a long time. That's a good thing.
And so when he goes out, the next batter comes up. She throws a couple pitches and ends up being called balls, so they take her out. That ended her career in baseball. Let me tell you why. After the game, reporters came over to Babe Ruth and they were like, "What do you think about a 17-year-old girl striking out?"
I like your old-timey baseball
Yes,
voice.
right? I thought you'd like that. I did that just for you. So they asked him, what did he think? And this is what he said. Now, I really want you to get ready for this, okay? He says, "I don't know what's going to happen if they begin to let women play baseball. Of course, they'll never make good. Why? Because they're too delicate. It would kill them to play ball every day."
Boo.
So the headlines the next day were everywhere. Every single newspaper in the country was running a headline on the sports page that said things like, pitcher fans Ruth and Gehrig. And it's a picture of her in her uniform. So the baseball commissioner sees this, and he gets real upset. So the baseball commissioner is the guy that's in charge of all of baseball, all the professional baseball. And he sees that this girl is making Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig look like idiots, and he doesn't like that. So he decides that her contract has to be voided because the sport is too strenuous for women.
Oh, boo.
So she actually wasn't done playing baseball. She was actually, at this time, she joined a barnstorming team, which is like these teams that would go around the country and they would play where there weren't baseball teams. So if your city didn't have a baseball team, they would play them. So she joined this really weird baseball team called the House of David.
Okay. That's a little different, but you know.
They were these really weird religious cult guys, and they were like vegetarians. They lived on a colony in Michigan, and they all had long beards and long hair. And so sometimes when she would play with them, she would put on a beard to play baseball. And
wow, she really wanted to play baseball.
Occasionally, they would actually play baseball on donkeys.
Yeah, no.
So she decided that was all a little too much for her, so she decided that she was going to quit baseball. So she stopped playing baseball and went back home to Tennessee, where she ended up working for her dad. But before she did that, when she was playing on the House of David team, so a lot of people started to say that what she did with Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth was a hoax. But I have evidence that it's not.
Oh, okay.
So when she was playing with the House of David team, she was 19 years old, and in one of the games that she was on, they pitched against the St. Louis Cardinals, which is a major league baseball team.
That is a major team, yeah.
And she struck them out and won the game 8-6.
That's pretty big in baseball, too.
Yeah. So she returned to her hometown and just went on like living a normal life. Have you guys, any of you ever seen the movie A League of Their Own about the all-female league?
Isn't that a great movie?
Oh, I love that movie so much. So the movie is based on a real thing, which was the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. And when they formed in 1946, they asked her to join, and she said no. I was so sad. I was like, why not?
Yeah.
But she was like, no, I'm done with baseball. Okay, so let me talk about whether or not this was a hoax. So lots of people said that this didn't really happen. It wasn't real. So this is what they said. They said that Joe Engel, the guy who was the runner of the show, he was such a showman. They called him the Barnum of baseball, as in he was a circus runner.
I was going to say, like the circus?
Like Barnum and Bailey. Right. So they were like, oh, it couldn't be real because this guy is always doing tricks. He's always doing stunts. And originally the game was supposed to be on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. And so they were like, oh, it was supposed to be this big joke. And they were rained out that day, and they did it on April 2nd. So they used that as proof that it wasn't true. And then they said that, you know, sometimes Babe Ruth was, like, prone to being theatrical. He would just, like, throw a temper tantrum. And so they said that's why. Okay. That's why. He's theatrical. And a lot of experts on baseball are like, there's no way this 17-year-old girl did this and was able to do this to these two players. Now, here's the proof. Are you ready? I think this is stronger, but you tell me. So neither Babe Ruth nor Lou Gehrig ever said it was a stunt, even after their careers in baseball were over.
Okay.
You'd think that if it was a stunt, they would eventually own up to that. And the Yankees manager was a guy named Joe McCarthy, and he was like way too competitive to let anybody just throw away a pitch, even if it was against a minor league team. He was never going to do that. Also, the third baseman at the time, his name was Ben Chapman. He said he was next up, and he was like, I had no intention of striking out. I planned to hit that ball. So he had no idea that if there was a plan, he wasn't in on it.
Huh.
Also, remember earlier, what did I say was special about the way Jackie played?
She was left-handed,
She's left-handed. Okay, so guess who else is left-handed?
Who?
Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig.
Oh.
And it turns out that a lefty on a lefty is one of the hardest hits in baseball. It's almost impossible.
Wow. Okay.
So, and in statistically, pitchers who are left-handed playing against a batter who's left-handed have the upper hand. So, she had the upper hand.
She did.
Also, they were instructed before the game that they could hit the ball, however she threw the pitch, as long as they didn't hit her with the ball. So, like, if they were to hit really hard and it was going to go towards her, then that would hurt her, and they couldn't have that. That would have been a media firestorm.
True.
So they told the batters that they had to make sure they didn't hit square on. Well, if you have to change your swing, you might miss. Just saying. Also, Babe Ruth was no stranger to striking out. He struck out 1,330 times in his career, leading the league in strikeouts 5 times. All right?
He swung at anything.
He did. He swung at anything, okay? And also, people point out that it would be really convenient to say it was a hoax because then the male egos wouldn't be so bruised.
Which they tend to, yes, boo. They tend to do that.
And also, I think the fact that the commissioner voided her contract immediately after that happened is because they were embarrassed because she really did do this thing, okay? And when Jackie was asked in 1987 whether or not she thought it was a hoax, she said, now excuse my language, why hell, they were trying, damn right, hell, better hitters than them couldn't hit me. Why would they have been any different?
That's
and
awesome.
Jackie died in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia on January 7th, 1987. She didn't ever marry and didn't have any children. She had a nephew and cousins as her survivors, and she was 74 years old.
Nice long life.
10 years after her death, Isla Borders became the first woman to pitch a regular season professional game. And in 2014, some of you may have heard of her, Monet Davis became the first girl to throw a shutout in the Little League World Series history.
Oh, awesome.
And as a last note, I think this is really important. The first baseball team ever to be paid to play baseball was an all-female African-American team named the Philadelphia Dolly Vardens.
What?
They were paid to play baseball 2 years before the first men's team.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good thing. Yeah. Let's make some noise on that one.
So that gives you a little bit of a hint of what our podcast is all about. We talk about women who've done incredible things that you probably didn't know about, and
But you should.
And we're really excited about the direction our podcast is in, and we're so excited that you're all here. I do want to put a little disclaimer out there. Our podcast has a lot of language in it, so younger...
It's mostly me.
Younger listeners maybe want to wait a few years.
Ask your parents first. We do talk about some adult things, yes.
But we do try to do our best to give honor and respect to the women who've done incredible things before us and are coming up after us.
Absolutely. Thank you, GirlCon, for having us here. I hope you enjoyed our podcast.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed that live podcast.
We had a really great time.
It was a blast, and I hope you can hear on the recording that the kids were having a great time, and we were having a great time. It was so much fun.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, I'm going to be sharing some photos of like the different speakers and things like that. So hopefully take a look when we have those up.
Yeah, once again, don't forget, we have social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're always at IDKHer Podcast. You can also email us at idon'tknowherpodcast@gmail.com. And you would be well informed if you come to our website, idkher.com, and check out what we've got going on there. Again, we may have some announcements and some merchandise you might be able to purchase in the future on there. So just keep checking back. And I just want to thank our editor/producer is Lucas McIntyre, and our music.
Thank you, Lucas.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucas. And our music is provided by L7. We have the song Shirley, which is written by Jennifer Finch.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
We'll talk to you next time.
Enjoy yourself.